I never thought a letter could make my stomach drop like a rock in a storm drain. I was sipping my morning coffee when I spotted the thick, official-looking envelope in my mailbox. The HOA logo stared back at me like it knew my secrets. My son was playing Legos on the floor, oblivious, his laughter filling the kitchen like a tiny defiance against the world's chaos. I tore open the envelope with a trembling hand. Inside, in sharp, commanding text, was a notice. Unpaid fees. Not just any fees, but late fines that somehow accumulated faster than I could track. The letter had a menacing undertone, almost personal, and at the bottom, like a cherry dipped in poison. Failure to comply may result in enforcement action. I laughed nervously. Enforcement action? Over a couple of $100? Surely that was a joke. Then I heard a knock at the door, firm, unyielding. I peeked through the peephole and there she was, Karen, the HOA president herself, standing with her arms crossed, her face a mixture of determination and self-righteousness. She looked like someone who believed she could control the universe with clipboards and neighborhood rules. "Good morning," I said cautiously, forcing a smile. My son peeked over my shoulder, curious. I got your letter, about the fees." Karen didn't smile. "You've ignored our notices for too long," she said, voice sharp, almost metallic. "We need to discuss your son's situation." My heart skipped. "His situation?" "Yes," she replied. "Your child has been noted as non-compliant with HOA guidelines for unsupervised outdoor activity and outstanding fines. He must come with me until this matter is resolved." My coffee went cold. My son blinked at her, unsure why this woman, whom he barely knew, sounded so terrifying. "Wait, what do you mean, come with you?" My voice cracked, though I tried to stay calm. Karen stepped forward, hand extended. "It's standard procedure. Don't make this harder than it has to be." I froze. Something in her tone, the rigidity of her posture, the cruel precision in her words, made my blood run cold. This wasn't just a warning. This was a threat. And before I could react, she crouched slightly, grabbed my son's hand and, just like that, started walking him toward her car. I lunged, but my legs felt like cement. My son looked at me, wide-eyed, clutching his little backpack. And in that moment, I realized this wasn't about unpaid fees anymore. This was personal. I ran to the front door just as Karen swung open her car, a gleaming black SUV that looked like it had swallowed the sun in its reflection. My son's little hand was still in hers, and the panic rising in my chest was sudden and suffocating. I screamed his name, my voice cracking across the quiet suburban street. Neighbors peeked out of their windows, holding coffees and curious expressions. But no one moved. "Stop! She can't do this!" I shouted, sprinting down the driveway, heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. Karen glanced back, her eyes cold and unyielding, like a cat cornering a mouse. "It's standard procedure," she called, her voice eerily calm for someone committing outright kidnapping. Standard procedure? My mind screamed nonsense, but I had no time to think rationally. I jumped into my car, the engine roaring as I peeled out onto the street, tires squealing against the asphalt. Karen's SUV was ahead, slow enough that I kept pace, yet she was deliberate, almost taunting. My son was sitting rigid in the passenger seat, clutching his backpack, staring at me with wide, scared eyes. "Mom! Mom!" he cried, and that single word tore through me like a knife. My hands gripped the steering wheel tighter, knuckles white, as adrenaline surged. "I'm coming, buddy. I've got you," I whispered, more to myself than to him. Karen's SUV suddenly swerved into a side street, trying to lose me. I followed, weaving between parked cars and dodging unsuspecting pedestrians. Each second stretched into eternity. The neighborhood that had once felt safe, the one I knew like the back of my hand, suddenly felt like a labyrinth designed for nightmares. I slammed the brakes as she turned sharply, nearly clipping a mailbox. My son's small voice called out again, trembling. "Mom! She's gonna take me!" My chest tightened. Fear and rage collided into a single burning force. I couldn't let this happen. Not him. Not to my son. Then it hit me. Karen didn't expect me to fight back. She thought a few letters, a little power, and fear would be enough to control me. She had no idea what I was capable of when it came to my child. I took a deep breath, and with a surge of determination, I followed her into the narrow alleyways of the cul-de-sacs. The chase wasn't just about catching up anymore. It was about reclaiming control, about proving that no one, not even a self-righteous HOA president, could take what was mine. And just as I thought I was gaining on her, the SUV disappeared around a corner. My heart stopped. Where the hell did she go? I skidded to a stop at the end of the cul-de-sac, my chest heaving, hands trembling on the steering wheel. Karen's SUV was nowhere in sight. My son's little voice called out from the back seat of my car, quivering. "Mom!" "I'm scared." My stomach knotted, and I swallowed the lump of fear rising in my throat. I had to think fast. She was clever, organized, and somehow convinced herself that this was her authority, her moral high ground. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911, keeping my eyes on every street, every shadow. "Yes, my child is being taken against my will by an HOA official. Black SUV, license plate." I rattled off the details as fast as I could, my voice steady despite the adrenaline. The operator assured me help was on the way, but my instincts told me I couldn't wait. Not for the cops, not for anyone. That's when I saw her, Karen. She was in the distance, standing by a small, abandoned storage shed at the edge of the neighborhood park. My son's backpack barely visible in her grip. She looked smug, almost victorious, like this was a game and she was winning. My blood boiled. I exited my car slowly, trying to keep calm, keeping my hands visible so she wouldn't think I was armed. I needed leverage, not a fight. "Karen," I called out, voice firm but controlled. "Give me my son." She turned, tilting her head with a smirk that made my skin crawl. "I can't do that," she said. "He's under protective custody until the fines are resolved. You should have taken this seriously." "Protective custody? Seriously? Over a few unpaid HOA fees?" I shouted, the words sharp like a whip. "You are insane if you think I'm letting you walk away with my child." Her eyes flickered, just a tiny fraction. And I knew I had to act. I stepped closer, forcing her to choose, release him or escalate this further. My son whimpered, and it broke something open inside me. A controlled fury, cold and deliberate. And then, as I reached out for him, Karen's hand tightened on the backpack, almost defiant. She wouldn't let go without a fight. But I wasn't just a parent anymore. I was a storm, and storms don't ask permission. A sudden sound, a snapping branch behind the shed made her flinch. My heart skipped. Someone else was here? Or was it a trap? Before I could react, Karen spun around, dragging my son further toward the shadows. My legs burned as I chased them into the shadows of the small park. The night was settling in, the orange glow of streetlights flickering across the pavement like warning signs. Karen's grip on my son's backpack was fierce, but I could see her faltering. Her confidence wavered as the reality of what she was doing finally collided with the chaos around her. "Karen, let him go!" I shouted, my voice echoing off the nearby houses. My son's small arms reached toward me, pleading, "Mom, help me!" That was all I needed. Every ounce of fear, anger, and desperation fused into one singular drive. I would not let her walk away. Karen spun, and for a moment, her face was a mask of panic. "You can't! You don't understand!" she stammered. I cut her off with a forceful step forward, and something inside me snapped. "You want to play this game?" I said, voice low and controlled like ice-coating steel. "Fine, but the rules are mine now." With that, I lunged, knocking the backpack from her hands and scooping my son into my arms. He clung to me like a lifeline, his tiny heartbeat hammering against mine. Karen staggered back, realizing that for the first time, she was on the losing side. "You thought you could intimidate me," I said, fury simmering beneath every word. "You thought fines and letters could control my life, my son, my family. But you forgot one thing. I fight for my own." Karen's smug facade crumbled. She opened her mouth probably to scream, but no words came out. For the first time, I saw fear reflected in her eyes. The fear of someone who had finally met a force greater than her own arrogance. I turned to my son, brushing the sweat-soaked hair from his forehead. "You're safe now," I whispered. He nodded, tears streaking his little face, but relief and trust radiated through his hug. We walked back to the street, my son securely in my arms. Karen stayed behind, a solitary figure swallowed by the shadows of her own making, the black SUV glinting faintly like a trophy that meant nothing anymore. The authorities arrived moments later, but it was already over. The lesson had been delivered, not with violence, but with courage, and the unwavering will of a parent protecting their child. As we drove home, I looked at my son sleeping against my shoulder, exhausted but alive. I realized that some battles aren't about HOA rules or unpaid fines. They're about boundaries, respect, and showing people that crossing the line has consequences. And Karen? She would never forget the day she tried to play God over my life. The night was quiet again, but the storm we'd survived left a mark, one that neither of us would ever forget. If this story hit home, tap like, because every fight for justice deserves to be seen. Subscribe to Karen Edition to catch real people standing up and reclaiming what's theirs. And tell me below, how would you handle a Karen crossing the line?